Hey everybody, John Mark here. Welcome to Mark My Words. I've got a very important video for you today. What to say to civic nationalists that don't want to face reality. And the reality I'm talking about is the reality that very soon the right wing in America is not going to be able to win any more elections just because of immigration, because obviously most immigrants are non-whites, and non-whites vote left-wing Democrat by a factor of more than 2 to 1, 70%. There are some civic nationalists that we are running into, and I'm sure you're running into them out there as well. Some of them learn very quickly. They learn basically instantly when they hear this statistic. They say, oh boy, that's not good. Some civic nationalists, though, fight it. And I'm going to give you an example of that today, and I'm going to give you one simple sentence that you can say to them that they will have no answer for. And it will get them to stop fighting you in many cases. Of course, there's some people that are just going to fight and fight because they just don't want to face the reality. But this is something that's extremely difficult, really impossible if they're intellectually honest, to answer. So, before I go on, quick note, I'm doing a little bit of a different format today. I'm going to experiment with this. I'm just sitting in front of my computer, showing you my screen and talking, because I can make these videos so much faster this way than if I spend a lot of time on the fancy visuals. That's what takes most of the time, and I think it actually adds the least value. My words are what is the most important. So I'm going to do at least some videos like this, and hopefully it will allow me to put out more content, because we're basically in a war situation, in case you hadn't noticed. And so fancy visuals are really the least of our concerns right now. So hopefully I can put out more content this way. So let me give you an example of a civic nationalist that fights against the reality that we are facing. A couple of friends contacted me and said, hey, your name was mentioned on the Jim Bohannon show a couple of days ago. It's this episode you see, second from the top, on the 9th of October. He had Michelle Malkin on as a guest, who's a fairly big name, and apparently this guy is a pretty big radio host. I had not heard of him before. He's kind of like a basic conservative type person, maybe a little bit of a moderate conservative, but as you can see, he's got guests like Bill O'Reilly that come on, Michelle Malkin, etc. So he's a pretty big deal. He's on 250 stations. So on October the 9th, a caller called in and said, hey, there's this guy, John Mark, on YouTube, who is pointing out the fact that immigrants vote 70% left, and very soon Texas is going to go blue, and Arizona is going to go blue for the same reason, and Florida, and we're not going to be able to win any elections because of legal immigration, not even to mention illegal immigration. So kudos to this caller for saying this. And I'm not going to play this radio host's reaction here because it's copyrighted. I'm not sure if I am allowed to, but you can go to omny.fm and look for his shows and find this episode, listen to it if you want. It's at about the 1 hour, 41 minute mark that it starts. But his reaction was very interesting. First of all, his reaction was, wow, immigrants only vote 70% left? I would have thought it was more. So this guy understands that immigrants are leftist voters, the great majority of them. And by the way, I'll just throw this in here. A friend of mine on Facebook said, we should probably start saying, instead of 70% left, we should start saying non-white immigrants vote left by a margin of more than 2 to 1. Because that actually sounds even worse than 70%, even though it's exactly the same thing. So this radio host openly acknowledged that he understands that these immigrants are voting majority left. Now, if you remember my video I made a little while back, Rush Limbaugh knows this too. He's known this for a while. Okay, so these people know this. What they're not doing is they're not taking their audience to the logical conclusion. So kudos to this caller, because he took the audience to the logical conclusion. And he actually said, this guy John Mark says that we're going to have a real situation on our hands in America because we're not going to be able to win any more elections, which is the absolute truth. So this radio host said, wow, it's only 70%. So he understands. Now check out the next thing that Jim Bohannon said. After the caller kind of got through with the spiel about, we're going to have a real situation in our hands because we're not going to be able to win any more elections. The radio host said, well, maybe a lot of these immigrants will, as they get older, they'll start to get more conservative. They'll start to vote right wing. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that those votes are set in stone. Now, folks, that is a big fat lie. There is zero evidence that I am aware of that non-white people start voting majority right wing when they get older. That is simply not true. There is no evidence. This guy's making something up out of thin air. And of course, the reason he's doing it is because he has corporate sponsors, all right? And he makes his money from just talking all day long about different issues and problems without ever presenting any solutions and without ever even getting to the root of the problem, which is demographics. Demographics is destiny. That is the reality. So I was thinking about this afterwards, because what he did was he said that and then he shut the caller off and went immediately to another caller. Nothing to see here, folks. Needless to say, this pisses me off, and it should piss you off royally too. He's dismissing out of hand the number one problem in America that threatens to destroy America and Western civilization, because he doesn't want to lose money, because he doesn't want to lose his corporate sponsors, because he doesn't want to go there. So I was thinking, what's one simple thing we can say to people like this, whether it's a radio host or somebody online or somebody you're in a conversation with, because we can go into the whole spiel. I mean, you can send people to my video, Why the Left Never Learns Part 1, and that will explain in detail why non-white people vote 70% left when they come to America. But sometimes we don't have time to go into a whole spiel. Sometimes we need to just hit people with a hammer of truth right over the head as simply and as quickly and as powerfully as possible. So I was thinking, what can we say to people that just destroys this whole argument once and for all of, well, maybe we can teach these people. And here's what it is, folks. This is what you say to them. One sentence. You ask them one question. Mr. Radio host, do you believe it is possible to turn California red again? Checkmate. Because if they say yes, they are obviously delusional. If they say no, they have just admitted that I am right and that you are right and that we are right. That's all you have to ask them. For most people, that will be a checkmate. Some people will keep fighting. So that's my first major point. My second main point I want to make today, which is very important, is that we cannot wait for these mainstream pundits and the mainstream Republican politicians to save us. Now, timing is an issue. I'm not saying right now is the time to go and make what needs to happen. But I'm saying we cannot rely on these people to lead us to where we need to go. We cannot wait for these people to lead us where we need to go. By the way, this thought just entered my mind as well. When you're talking to a civic nationalist, what you're telling them, that the right wing's not going to be able to win any more elections very soon, seems like really bad news to them. Because your average civic nationalist, normie con, is used to thinking in terms of winning elections. And then when they realize we're not going to be able to win any more elections, they feel like the floor just drops out from underneath them. So pick them up immediately and say, listen, this is a chance to do something that's needed to be done for decades and decades in America. This is our chance to get rid of the Fed and the debt slavery system. This is our chance to fix all these problems that have been accumulating. This is our chance to turn our government from what has basically become a corruption factory in many ways into a much better, much cleaner system. And then you can tell them about propertarianism. But turn it around to the positive, because this is actually true. This is our chance. And guess what, folks? Our enemies have no chance against us. The only thing that's stopping these problems from being fixed is the grassroots right wing being more comfortable than uncomfortable. Well, when the grassroots right wing can't win any more elections, and they have no more option to run to a red state, because even the red states, I mean, Texas, for Pete's sake, is turning purple and it's going to turn blue. When all of these options run out, And the left is going exponentially crazier by the week at the same time. All of a sudden, the grassroots right wing is going to have the incentive to initiate some type of secession, separation, balkanization type of movement to separate from our corrupt federal government, the globalists that run it, and the crazy left. That's what needs to happen. And if this crisis wasn't happening, we might not have the opportunity to make that happen. So turn it around for them. Don't leave them hanging depressed. Pick them up. Send them to my video, Civil War II in America, Who Would Win, that now has 1.4 million views. That video, by the way, is the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, it's getting thousands of views a week, months after it was released. And by the way, the caller that called into this Jim Bohannon show also said, John Mark is the only guy I know of on the right wing that is saying this about the demographics. Now, that's not true. There are a lot of other people that have been saying this about the demographics and that have been saying it before I ever started saying it publicly, at least. But the good news there is that this caller, obviously my videos were his first introduction to this whole demographics is destiny concept and what I call the winning right. Because if you're just trying to fix the problem that the right wing faces in America without addressing the demographic issue and saying we have to have no more non-white immigration because they vote 70% left, if you're not addressing that, you're just part of the losing right, because no matter what else you do, you're just going to keep losing because you're losing the demographic battle. So this guy's first introduction to the winning right was my videos, and that makes my day. So we are reaching people, folks. We are making a difference. And it's not just me. There's a very strong likelihood that one of you in my audience actually reached this guy by sharing my videos somewhere. So thank you for doing that. We are making headway. And the people are listening, even if the people at the top of the punditry class and the political class, most of the politicians, aren't listening because they don't have the incentive to listen, and they're not moving as fast because they don't have the incentive to move as fast. Now, as I said, some of them are starting to sound like me in some ways, but they're not going to take it to the logical conclusion the way I do and the way we do. They're going to be very slow to do that, and that's my point. We cannot wait on these people. We cannot say, well, when Hannity says the right thing, then it's time to do what needs to be done. No. These people are going to drag their feet and drag their feet and drag their feet, even though they have to start saying some of these things. I'll give you an example. Let me open Michelle Malkin's book. Open Borders, Inc. Who's Funding America's Destruction? So this is kind of a mainstream Republican, run-of-the-mill Republican person, pundit, who's been around for a while, who's saying, oh, wow, the big corporations actually want open borders. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. How many of us have been saying this for years and years, and now suddenly you have a best-selling book because you've been saying the same old losing right pablum for years, and you got an audience doing it, and now you're selling your book? Well, at least she's saying this, right? At least even if she's late to the party, at least she's saying it. But then, look, she's still staying in this lane of, oh, it's illegal immigration that's the problem. Oh, actually, look at this line right here. Bottom of the second paragraph, bottom of the third paragraph. Uncontrolled immigration, both legal and illegal. Wow, good for you, Michelle. Folks, she's starting to sound like me. She mentioned that uncontrolled legal immigration is not good. Now, she's still kind of couching it in this, well, cheap labor, for Silicon Valley, and they want immigrant workers from India, I assume is kind of what she's saying here. So she's still trying to keep it as politically correct as she can while saying what needs to be said, but at least she mentioned legal immigration. Good for her. So you're going to see a mix. You're going to see this, what Michelle Malkin is doing. You're going to see what Jim Bohannon did. You're going to see what Rush Limbaugh's been doing, and they're all going to kind of gradually keep moving more and more towards saying what needs to be said. But my point is, we cannot count on these people to say what needs to be said and lead us to where we need to go, because they have too many other incentives. They're making too much money from their corporate sponsors, etc. So do not wait for these people to give you your cue and give us our cue and lead us where we need to go. And that leads me into the last thing I want to say, which is, I'm going to be doing a series of videos. This was Curt Doolittle's idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. We're going to get on my YouTube channel, and we're going to make a series of videos where we go through the Propertarian Constitution, article by article, and we discuss it. This is going to be so important, and I want to invite every single one of you, my audience, to come be founding fathers with us. Now, I'm not really bragging on myself here. I just came across Curt Doolittle, and Curt Doolittle, as somebody that was interviewing me the other day said, Curt Doolittle is basically our Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was the #1 most influential of the founding fathers as far as the Constitution goes, and of course there was a lot of other men involved. But really, Curt Doolittle is our Thomas Jefferson. And I didn't say that. That was something that somebody who was interviewing me said. I may put the clip up on my YouTube channel soon, or a clip from that interview. He's our Thomas Jefferson. I'm latching onto it because I'm saying, wow, this is the best thing around by a long shot. This is the best solution that I've seen. And of course, you've seen my videos explaining the basics. So I want to encourage every single one of you to go read the Constitution, the Propertarian Constitution, on Propertarianism.com. I should have had it up, but I don't. You just have to go to Propertarianism.com. It's in one of the drop downs, and you'll see the Constitution. Go start reading through it. You may not understand every single line of it because some of it is legal language and very specific definitions and all of that, which is very necessary to set the foundation. And then it gets into this is how we want to do things and this is the policies that flow from that. But you will recognize in there, even if you have to skim parts of it, you will recognize the definition of reciprocity. You will recognize the definition of property, how Curt talks about property. You will recognize falsehood tests. You will recognize some of this, and boy, when I read all of this, I just start pumping my fist for joy. And I believe the vast majority of grassroots right-wingers, it's not going to be hard to get them on board with this because all of the policies, which is the part that people mostly relate to, flow from the definition of reciprocity. And they're basically just ways of doing things in a way that does not violate reciprocity and does not allow people to violate reciprocity. So it's absolutely fantastic. I would encourage you to go do that as preparation for this series of videos that we're going to be doing. Come be founding fathers with us. Let me see if I can find this so I can show you what it looks like. Okay, here's Propertarianism.com. You just go Propertarianism, drop down, a new Constitution, index. The law. And some of these are shorter, and it's not 100% completed. You'll see some sections that are not completely done, where there's blank space or it needs to be filled in. But a lot of this first part is definitions, and then there's also a declaration saying, look, these are the costs that you, our enemies, have imposed upon us. You have done this, this, and this. We are not going to put up with that. This is our moral authority for making sure that you can never do this to us again. Then you have some definitions. You have all this stuff. And again, you may not understand all of it, or you may have questions about some of it. That's fantastic. That's fine. Or you may wonder, is this really the best way to do this? That's fine. We want to start the conversation. I will tell you that Curt Doolittle is a very high IQ genius who thinks through things extremely thoroughly. And pretty much every time somebody has come to him or to me and said, well, you haven't really thought through this. No, you just don't know that we've thought through it yet. You're the one who hasn't thought through it. It's usually the answer. So know that this is not some fly-by-night thing. This is very well thought out. This is a labor of love over many, many years. And of course, this Constitution honors the original. It carries out the intent of the original. It just has a lot more specific definitions. It's a lot more specific and thorough about a lot of things that the Founding Fathers took for granted back in their day. So I'm going to be coming out with a video, at least that's my plan, soon, where I am going to play an excerpt from a video that I put on my second channel. The link is in the description, so make sure you're subscribed to that as well. Because it's on my second channel, it might not have gotten as many views. So I'm going to put a very important excerpt from that video, and then I'm going to play some excerpts from an interview I did the other day with a couple of guys that are absolutely fantastic. And some of the things this one guy was saying were just great, and I really want you to hear it because it's about this whole Constitution. He said, we need to have a constitutional convention, is actually what he said, which is a fantastic idea if we can make something like that happen. Right now, we're in the mode of just spreading the word. So, folks, I want to ask you to do one thing, which is spread the word. Spread the word about the demographic situation, not with an attitude of hate or all non-white people are terrible, not like that, but just the simple fact that they vote 2-1 left wing, more than 2-1, and we cannot get them out of that voting mode. And if you think we can get them out of that voting mode, just ask them, do you believe it's possible to turn California red again? And then share the Propertarian Constitution. Share with them my videos about Propertarianism where I explain the basics. Bring the conversation forward. Get the conversation going. Spread the word. And you guys are already doing that, as is evidenced by the fact that, well, this guy called into a very well-known radio talk show host and spoke the truth to, I don't know how big the audience is, maybe millions of people. Love you all. Till next time.